So I'm Mark Lautman. I'm the founder of the Community Economics Lab. I've been an economic development professional since 1983, so a long time. I wrote a book called When the Boomers Bail, and it's about how we baby boomers didn't have enough kids to replace ourselves, and then didn't educate half the ones we did have well enough to take our place in the market. And so from probably 2000 to 2025 or 30, there's going to be a phenomena in the marketplace, in the labor market, where we boomers are leaving faster than new entrants into the workforce can replace us. And so part of the lab's work was going to communities that had noticed that they were starting to have trouble growing their workforce, and helping them think it through and come up with program solutions. And I ended up doing a 1.5-year assignment with the Chamber of Commerce and a study group in Colorado Springs, where they were having trouble keeping talent in the Springs, in the community. They had really good universities and they had fairly good school systems, but their kids were all leaving to go to Boulder, and it was getting really tough for the local business guys to find people they could hire that could pass a drug test and learn the job. And so there was enough evidence that was a problem where they had us up there. And early on in the assignment, the chamber president said, you ought to meet this guy that just moved to town named Anatoly Glishenko. He's a physics professor at the university. He's got this idea of how to solve the big part of the problem, which is we're not graduating kids out of high school or colleges that can go straight into the workforce. So I arranged a meeting, and by the time I got through with my first encounter with Anatoly, I realized he had discovered something really important and potentially groundbreaking as far as solving the problems that communities are having. Because up until then it was like, what are we going to do? I mean, you've got this, because everybody you're going to hire in the next 25 years has already been born. And if your school systems aren't producing them, where are you going to get them? You're going to have to steal talent from somebody else. Whether you're an employer or a community, you're going to have to steal talent from somebody else. And that creates a zero-sum market, and the consequences of which are are serious in themselves politically. And I'll say I think along with everybody else, you're kind of skeptical we're skeptical of silver bullet solutions for anything, especially answers to complicated problems, what we call wicked problems. But they got 2 middle schools there to try out the curriculum. These are some of the poorest and lowest performing middle schools in the state. 95% free and reduced lunch populations. I think 85% of the kids in 6th grade were 1 to 2 years behind grade level in all 3 subject areas: math, science, and language arts. And so they ran the program. They had some visionary leadership in the schools and a willing teacher corps. And they had me come back for the assembly where they announced the results. So we walk into this gym and they announced the results, and it was just floored everybody. So in 1 year, they had 85% of the kids were 1-2 years behind. In one semester, in 1 year, 80% were 1 to 2 ahead. 30% made a 4 grade level jump. In all 3 subject areas. And they found out the language arts paces up with science and math because it's all word problems. And I said, are we sure that it's going to be hard to explain these kind of results? Do you think the teachers cooked the books on this? It was kind of like a stand and deliver thing, and I don't know, boy, that's worrying me too. And so I'm not sure I want to actually say that they improved this much, just because. And so I'm going, God, I wonder what's going on. I parked on the wrong side of the school, so we had to, when we were heading to the car, we got caught in a class change, and we got slammed up against the lockers next to a door to one of the classrooms. There were some 6th graders that turned out standing next to us, about 5 of them. And Anatoly says, "Hey, what grade are you guys in?" And one kid goes, 6. And he says, "Really? So what's your favorite class? What's your favorite subject?" "Physics, bro." So then he says, "So really? So what are you studying right now?" One kid says, "Well, we're studying like how a bike's really an angular momentum machine, and if you take 2 teeth off the little sprocket and put it on the big sprocket, you get an increase in acceleration." And we're like, "Oh, wow." And the kid behind him goes, "And leverage too." And I remember walking out of there going, God, this might actually be working. Fast forward a few years later, those kids are hitting high school. There's a 300+ increase in demand for AP STEM courses. So when we saw it working, we took another level of interest in this and actually started thinking about what it could do. And the benefits are potentially spectacular. Number one, you can flip D and F schools to A and B schools in a year or 2, making your community way more attractive. We also knew that, within 5 or 6 years, the school system would actually be putting kids from that community directly, the ones that didn't go to college, directly into the workforce with the skills and background knowledge to actually learn a technical skill quickly. So it was as close to a silver bullet solution as we'd seen if you could get the thing implemented. The missing link or the missing piece of our education problem right now, as far as STEM fields go, is our kids don't get enough physics. We're the only, they get less, our kids in the US get less than 1% of the physics by 10th grade that kids in any level at school, in really rich private schools all the way down to rural schools, get in Asia and Europe. And the results are in the data. You can see what their remediation rates are, and you can see the impact that it has. Everybody's looking for the solution now to this workforce issue, and it's either steal talent from someplace else, or you got to grow your own. And you really most places are going to have to do both. So I start with that. Say, this thing, I've been watching this thing for 5 years now, 6 years now. This thing's for real. You need, of all the things I could tell you to help your community with economic development over the next 10, 20, 30 years, this would be the first thing I'd recommend you do. When these kids start taking physics, they end up learning stuff and knowing stuff. They come out of school knowing stuff that a lot of people that didn't take physics never knew. And all of a sudden you've got 6th graders that otherwise, looking at them, you would think they weren't very bright. No physics. And somebody says, when they're asked, so what are you taking and what's your favorite class? And they say physics. You go, you're taking physics? The implication is you must be smart. And so it changes the whole dynamic of school for these kids. And when they get this experiential physics in middle school, by the time they hit 9th and 10th grade into junior high, Then they have something to apply algebra and geometry and pre-calculus mathematics to, and all of a sudden it makes sense instead of it being an abstraction. By the time they hit high school and 11th and 12th grade, they're able to take, they're able to apply calculus and higher mathematics to real world problems, and all of a sudden everything comes alive. Everything makes sense. If it doesn't, you know there's a solution. There's some mathematical or logical explanation for it. You just need to go find it. And so kids stay curious all the way from 5th grade, where they usually get the curiosity drummed out of them in middle school, and they end up, curious students all the way through high school. And if they don't go to college, they end up able to go to work for you, and you don't have to tell them what a tape measure looks like, and you don't need to tell them about thermal physics, and they already know all this stuff. So I graduated from high school in 1967. It's like I was, we didn't have a TV, when I was in 5th grade. They had just invented them. We didn't have one. So kids are way smarter now today than we were. The data shows it, So, and the world that they're going to inhabit is, the technological world that we're living in now and the one that we're going to have in the future is governed by a language of coding. And if you don't understand physics, the whole world, everything in your world is going to look like a mystery, like an unsolved, it's going to look like magic. And if you don't have the right educational background and starting with physics, you're not going to understand none of it, and you're not going to be interested in it, and you have a good chance, I think, of being lost. So I think this is, on almost every level. I don't know of another thing that you could do as a civic enterprise than this that would have potentially the biggest impact. And when you start thinking, you start scaling that impact across the country, and then compare what our country and what our communities look like with it compared to what it'll look like without it in 10 years, it's almost immoral not to do it. At least try it. It's mind-boggling, because all we have is life sciences and biosciences, which are good, but you completely miss the physics. And I can't tell you, my dad made all of us take physics. I learned so much in that class, and I don't think I'd be the same person right now had I not taken physics. I know I wouldn't. I just have an attitude about complicated problems that, oh yeah, there's a way to figure it out. And if there isn't, there's a way to find out that there isn't a solution to it. There's nothing that would be even close from a cost benefit standpoint. So this thing is so cheap to put into place, and you don't have to, it doesn't require scrambling your teacher corps, establishing a new testing regime. You don't have to fight a policy battle over curriculum. You just slide this thing in, let the science and math teachers figure out how to get it in. They're all independent contractors the way they operate. They'll figure out how to make this thing work, and you'll see the results. Yeah, the downstream benefits of applying this program are so big that it's almost impossible to calculate what the economic value is. And when you look at the difference between what the world will look like in the future if we apply it and what it will look like if we don't, it's almost immoral not to do it. And it's so inexpensive, and it's so easy to seamlessly insert into a public school system that the cost benefit is incalculable.